Well, we do have some breaking news we want to follow up on now that we told you about a moment ago. A judge in Fulton County, Georgia, has granted this motion that will allow an audit of the presidential election. Absentee ballots, specifically, is what we're talking about in Fulton County. They may be unsealed there and then examined for possible fraud. The Atlanta area county was, of course, the center of some major allegations of possible fraud after some videos appeared to show people bringing in suitcases full of ballots at polling stations. Now, those allegations were investigated and found to be false. Joining us now to discuss is Newsmax host of America Right Now, Tom Basile. Tom, thank you for joining us. Have you learned anything else about this audit? We were saying it's, 145,000 absentee ballots.
So unlike what we've seen in Arizona, this is going to be sort of government run. They're going to, the county is going to manage this under the judge's order. It's going to impact about 145,000 ballots. Now, one of the things that's important for people to remember is that Fulton County was kind of the epicenter of that $6.3 million Mark Zuckerberg Dropbox scheme that they called the Safe Elections Project. So there were a lot of questions after Election Day about the drop boxes, about what happened at State Farm Arena. Now, again, all of this stuff people have gone over before, but I think that everybody should be cheering about this, guys. I think that particularly Democrat candidates, everybody should be saying, look, there's nothing to hide here. If the process was followed and we're sure that we don't have any problems with irregularities, then let's take a look at this stuff one more time. Bob and Heather, we've had 2 presidential elections now in this country where people, big segments of the population, felt like there was some sort of fraud. And I think that whatever we can do to give people confidence in the process, confidence in the system, we should do it. And particularly in a place like Fulton, where there were a lot of questions that came out of the November election.
So how are they going to ensure that both sides in this case are comfortable with what they find? And what kinds of things are they likely to look for?
Look, I think that a lot of the details in terms of the timetable and the actual process have not been announced just yet, but they will be. I think the most important thing is that both sides are able to observe the counters. You know, back in 2000, we all remember that. People sat at the tables with the official counters, and you had Republican and Democrat representatives looking at these ballots, looking at handwriting, looking at signatures, looking at similarities and addresses, and making sure that these ballots were filled out properly, and then raising objections. I think that that's really the most important thing. Not that you have one observer for 5 counting tables, but that you allow people to have as much transparency in the counting process as possible, and hopefully they will do that here.
Yeah, there are also some other calls in Georgia, specifically one by Vernon Jones, who is running for governor, to expand this audit all across the state.
Well, look, I think the fact that a judge said okay to this is a big step. I think it's important, and again, it's one of these things that I think everybody should be saying, okay, let's go, let's do it, because it is important that everybody have confidence in this process.
Tom, you're not mentioning that when you talk about the Florida recount, the presidential recount, you were working with the Bush administration at that point. And I wanted to get your feeling, what did you learn from that process that you'd want to pass along to anybody doing a recount or an audit?
Look, I think that, again, it goes back to transparency. And one of the biggest problems that I think a lot of people saw during the recount in 2020 was that both sides were not able to have as much representation there, from both campaigns, be able to actually watch the counting and the analysis of the ballots go on. And I think that that's what's really, really critical here. And I hope that that's going to be part of this process. I hope that the Secretary of State and the governor will insist that there is adequate transparency to that process.